What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi with my man Eric Sheets Haber. We promised you we're coming to you a little late here. We're going to bring it to you. I've been getting requests all day to when are you guys going to put out the video with your last thoughts. So here we are. We're going to do a quick one for you real quick. Sheets, what I guess has changed, and feel free to share your screen if you want to do so.
Yeah, well, is this going to finish?
What?
The tournament?
Oh, you're on this now? This is okay. So we're filming right now. It's 11 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday. And Sheets is asking me that now. I feel like I've had that concern all day. So the technical rules are, as Jonathan Tamayo, Driver Seat I, pointed out to me on Twitter, which I actually didn't understand entirely what it was, but it says it'll be completion after 36 holes, basically. So
okay. All right. So where we're at, by the way, since the last conversation,
is going to be heavily in play. He would be our COVID fade of the week.
Who?
Shane Lowry, because he golfed with Kopka and what's his name, the first guy to withdraw.
Well, I'll tell you what's a little tilting. I mean, I feel bad for these guys, obviously, but let's try to be insensitive for a minute. It's a little tilting that the two guys that I was going to have zero of scratched. I was going to have zero Simpson and zero Koepka.
Yeah.
And so all that ownership is going to be just trickling down to my dudes, which is a little annoying. But
well, you've taken a very different approach this week than I have. I'll tell you that right now. Just looking at your screen.
Yeah. So this is what I ended up doing. So I took those first four guys that we talked about at the top, McIlroy, Thomas, Rahm, and DeChambeau, and I settled on McIlroy and Rahm as the guys I was going to use. What I also did was I picked a collection of what I felt were good plays that were going to be low owned. Now, I don't know how much low owned they're going to be now, just because all that ownership from these two other guys are going to go somewhere.
Yeah.
But I really got into Xander Schauffele.
Yeah. And
I really got into Patrick Reed. And the other two guys that I'm pretty heavy on, as you see, are going to be Fitzpatrick and Finau. So what I tried to do is I tried to, number one, try to get two studs in, and I couldn't do it. I ended up with, like we talked about in the video yesterday, I ended up with too much crap, right? And then on the other hand, I thought about doing what I did last week, was a whole bunch of guys in the 8K range. But I just remember that, like, the guys that were in the 8K range last week are just not the same guys. I mean, they're not. I'm not getting Johnson. I'm not getting what's his name, the British guy.
Great for Finau, Woodland. I think Sergio's a great play this week. Actually, it's a great course for him. So I actually like that 8 to 9K. You got Patrick Reed, who you seem to be pretty heavy on.
Yeah,
I like that quite a bit myself, but I understand.
So what I ended up doing was I ended up with one stud. Okay, either McIlroy or Rahm. And then I went to one kind of higher priced guy like either Reed or Schauffele. I have some Morikawa in here. And then I kind of relied on some of these like these guys like Horschel, Harman, Connors, Scheffler. And that's the way I did it. And you know, the last thing I was going to do was I was going to do half my lineups like this and the other half the way we talked about, just basically just sort of like last week, like getting rid of the top guys and just living in that middle range. But I think that this is what this is what I kind of just decided on. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm still zero Watson. I'm still zero Casey. And I'm living with zero DeChambeau and zero Thomas. And that's the scariest one, is the zero Thomas, because as we talked about, the guy's freaking insane. But
I think Bryce and Thomas are very scary this week.
Yeah, I just feel as though that the ownership difference between Rahm and Thomas is going to be significant, and I kind of want to take that. And
so why the Schauffele love? Is it strictly an ownership play?
Yeah.
I don't particularly love him for this. There's a lot of good golfers, and I feel like are better suited. So I've sort of stayed away from it. But I love it as a look, this guy is 2 out of the last 3 years finished the top 5 of the FedEx Cup. He can play all courses. There's sometimes where you just want to throw the scrapbook out and all the information and just play guys who make sense, who are good golfers. And I feel the same way about Fitzpatrick. The more research I've done, the more I've come off of Schauffele and Fitzpatrick, because statistically, this doesn't make as much sense to play them this week. The problem is when you factor ownership in, which should be, based on our other conversation, the most important factor this week, then they become terrific. Anybody becomes a fine play. Like, it is a wild, wild situation if it's anything like what we've seen so far. These courses should play fairly easily, very, very wide fairways. Like, it's going to be easy for guys who are good golfers. It's going to be hard for them to struggle. So that's sort of what I'm thinking. What I sort of did was something similar. Something similar in some sense. I tried to find the low-owned guys and really try and hammer some high ownerships. I went for some different ones. I have a lot of Patrick Rogers. I have some Phil Mickelson. It's interesting. Phil Mickelson, 6,900. Look, he's paired up the first day with with Bryce and Rory. You can't tell me he's not going to at least try and be hitting the ball a million miles. I just like the idea for the upside if he happens to be on target as a low-owned play. Other guys, I have some other low-owned guys that I like a lot. But the main thing I'm trying to do is really try and get the guys who can potentially, have the second place 3 strokes ahead of the third place guy, the leader 5 strokes ahead overall of the third place player, the 2 ahead of the. I want to try and find some people who can create possible separation, because there's so many golfers we have measured as similar, especially.
Well, and I thought of that, and that exact sentence that you were mentioning, that was ringing in my ear after we did our video yesterday. It's exactly what you were saying. Is that there might be a couple of guys that might be able to separate themselves, and that's why I really tried my best to get one of those guys that can do that in there. I want you to go through kind of who you like also, and I just want to just kind of go over, just because again this is for my own sanity also, just to kind of be ultra transparent what I ended up doing. So the way you see all these lineups, these first 4 were in 2 contests. What I'm going to be doing is this is what I have. So I'm going to be entering the bigger single entry one, the 200. And then I entered this 100, the one that, with the 200K in prizes. It was kind of, I didn't know whether I wanted to do that one or not. It's 50K for first, and it seems a little tough because people can put 66 entries in. So that might be tough, but it wasn't going to be.
2 top 25 finishes out of 1 million people last week in the $20.
Right.
What does it matter?
Right.
These guys went over, especially with your lineup. You stuck to these guys who are going to be.
Yeah.
Who knows? Hits big and you win.
So that's what I'm doing. So I'm doing this one, the single, and then I'm doing 3 of the hundreds, and then I'm doing, I think it's 20 or so of the million, and then a single entry in the 12. Okay, so that's why I want to kind of put it into context. The reason why I had like these 4 lineups are going to be in 2 things. Like it's going to be the single entry and the single entry, and then the other bigger ones, whatever you want to call it. And everything's going in the million. I'm not letting something I go into one of these others win the million without me having it. I'm just.
I agree with that 100%. Unfortunately, I've played so many lineups and maybe spent even too much time on this that I actually have hundreds of lineups that aren't in.
Well, you know what? It's going to be very intriguing because would you mind? Would you share your screen so we could?
Sure. Here, I'll stop.
So let me unshare mine.
I'll get mine.
We could see what's probably going to be a very different yet more intelligent, but approach, I guess.
No.
So one thing I noticed is there are 3 guys here, actually a lot of guys here that I considered that just didn't make it for me. The guy that I am that I'm looking at right now, you can go through your ownerships and your process in a second, but the one guy I am very, very not upset, the guy you're fearing is one guy I'm really, really under on. I guess you're under on him too, or maybe you're with the field. I was a little nervous that, especially with Webb and these other guys out, that I would really want to have more Hovland. I ended up just kind of thinking he was going to be just too highly owned, because that's what I just kind of heard from just so many people. Coming off of 2, good performance and stuff, it just, you can't play everybody. So he's one that I'm going to be nervous about not having. And the two guys that I see that you have a lot of, that one guy I only am not playing because of ownership and being a contrarian piece of garbage. And the other one I'm just not playing. It just didn't quite make it for me. But both of them I really, really like are M and Woodland. Woodland is the last serious. I mean, I might actually just filter a little bit because Woodland's the last guy I kind of struggle with. And I just hope it's not just my recency bias of how much freaking equity he cost me by choking round 4 last week. Because he's super steady. He's a really good player. And if he somehow again is going to get, well, he was pretty popular last week, but if somehow he doesn't get owned at this price, I'm going to really want him. So the guys that I'm looking at on your thing, the guys that I wish I had more of, let's put it that way, are going to be Hovland and Woodland.
Yeah, and Hovland is a guy who, so it's interesting to think about this. So basically, percentage of ownership really varies depending on the tournament. Not just how the differences in the ownership is, but the fact that in an 888 you can play some chalk and get away with it. And in my 888 builds as of right now, you can see this lineup has too much chalk. This is actually too much chalk. But for an 888, even though it's too much chalk, it's a lineup that I could see cashing. You know what I mean? It's not
it could get fourth.
You know, but that's not what we're playing for. So what realistically, but I really don't have to do more than 1 or 2 pivots here. Like I really don't. I actually like Neiman fine as a golfer. I'm sort of lower on him in general. So originally I had Leishman in this lineup, who I like a little better, a little lower owned. But I might do something a little bit weird and leave a little bit on the table and drop down to one of the Scheffler, Dahmen, Poulter, Day, Connors situation. I'm sort of flirting with some ideas, but this is just sort of what I've got right now. And obviously I'm going to make some changes. I've got a whole night of editing. I've got on COVID standby, ready to go at any time. And I'm going to be waking up in the middle of the night or staying awake till the middle of the night so I can make sure to get all my lineups right. But you can see the ownership's a little more spread out than you'd want. But again, with the way things are playing right now and how many lineups I have, it's really not as spread out as it looks like. So Finau, while he looks like he's 36%, he's probably in 65% of my my overall dollar value.
Okay.
Victor Hovland is probably in 45% of my overall dollar value.
And it's interesting, you know, because that's one of the first questions I ever asked you when I first learned DFS is, you know, you watch content and you hear people talk about what percentages they have with people. And I always wonder, do they quote them in terms of a percentage of lineups or percentage of money? You know, because if I have, you know, if I have 80%, if I have 5% of one guy, but it turns out he's in the big lineup that takes over 50% of my entry fees. You know what I mean? It's kind of disingenuous to say, I only have 5%.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting, it's a different way to look at it. And everybody just says the percentage they really had, and you could show the numbers, but the truth is your actual dollar assessment is more important. And honestly, you can eat a little more chalk. So I can be much higher in Finau in my higher buy-in smaller field tournaments than I can be in my large field tournaments.
Right.
Other guys who I'm throwing in some wild cards. I have a little more, like, I know Jason Day only shows up as 12%. And again, look, Jason Day, this feels awful. I don't feel good about this at all. This is not a rousing endorsement for Jason Day. He played well here before. He's a much better golfer than he's shown so far. And he's just been sporadic. Hasn't been right in a while. Had the injury a while back, but has time to heal. It's sort of a bet on a hope, sort of like you would with Oosthuizen. You're not used to seeing, you know, guys like Jason Day and Oosthuizen at 75 and 7,200. So I'm taking some shots on some guys like that. I like Homa. I'm getting more involved with him. I'm just trying to, you know, I'm still in the process of editing, so these numbers are going to change drastically. But the main thing I wanted to express was that it really is different when you play different stakes. You know, look, so overall for this tournament, I might end up with somewhere like 20% Carlos Ortiz. But at the same time, those will all be in tournaments that have 10,000 person fields or more, probably. You know what I mean?
The guy can certainly hit it far. I mean, Ortiz can definitely get hot on a course like this. He's again, you know, he's one of the guys that just was on my periphery. I like that play though.
Yeah, and there's a lot of guys like that I'm mixing in. Harry Higgs is one other guy who stood out a little bit at the low end. I liked him a little better earlier until I found other low-end guys that I like, and they go back to the ones that we talked about the other day, I believe. Von Taylor, Doc Redman. You can see I'm editing some lineups right now, whittling down.
Hey, I saw what's his name tweet that Red.
What are they?
Could be huge chalk. That can't be right.
I think he's going to be more owned than people think, but he's not going to be mega chalk.
He won't be like 20%, right? I mean, like.
No, he won't be that high.
Okay.
Maybe in some of the higher buy-in, I can even see certain cash games because of the other big names being out that you try and maybe hammer a couple big guys in. So maybe he'd be a little higher owned. I don't know. I can't see that personally. I'm trying to think of why, but I really can't. Another guy that I plan on getting a little bit more, and I like the wild card of Keegan Bradley and Kokrak. Shez Reavie won this tournament last year. I just think here's my argument for Fitzpatrick and on, basically. These guys are just good young golfers we don't know what their ceiling is. You know what I mean? We're seeing them play good golf consistently. They've won big tournament. They've won, or at least On has. They've both been deep in a lot of big tournaments, and they basically make the cut almost every time, although On hurt us last week. I don't mind just taking shots just for the randomness when everyone's going to jump off of guys who they would normally play here if those guys, finished in 25th last week, made the cut and had a good Saturday and Sunday. And I'm just trying to focus on some of that stuff. I do think my lineups are a little bit too chalky. I'm coming a little bit off Patrick Reed because the more I've read, the more I've talked to people, they just think there's something wrong with him right now. But I still have interest in him. I think he's just too good of a golfer to be priced where he's at, and I think he's going to be lower owned than he should be. So, look, I don't know where it stands. There's no specifics I've heard on anything that's specifically wrong with him. They just say he looks off. That's not a good enough reason for me not to play somebody. I've seen that happen in every sport. Anyway, you can sort of see the general thing that I'm doing, though. I'm generally paying up for one or two spots. I am going to end up with probably Morikawa in about 40 or 50% of my high buy-in stuff. I think it's a really, really safe, strong play. Morikawa, M, Woodland, and Finau, just based on how good I feel with them and their prices and everything, are just four of my favorite plays. Now, they're going to be popular. These are not off-the-board guys, but they are just four guys who I'm using sort of as a base. I have them all four in one lineup, which I probably need to change. I kind of like that all these lineups this lineup was all below 9,100, but I'm probably going to mix this up a little bit. Just wanted to give away sort of what I was thinking about. I have some like this where I'm spending all the way up and then all the way down for Redmond, Neesmith, and Taylor with Leishman. Look at this. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff going on. I do think it's interesting with Phil playing with Rory, and I know this sounds nuts, but as a wild card play to play Phil, who's playing with Rory and Bryce on day one, I just think it's interesting enough to probably take some big swings at. Just the fact that he's going to be trying to drive with these guys on day one. If it goes right for him, you might see him shoot a low number. In which case, even if he messes up twice, like he will inevitably the rest of the way, for two double.
When did those guys tee off, early or late?
I actually don't know the tee time on that one, but I just think it's an interesting pairing. You know what I mean? You have the two bombers and the two favorites basically, with Mickelson, that's used to be his job. So I don't know. And there's some old school lineups. I've been playing some of the these Garcia guys. I like a lot. Look, Bubba's won this tournament 2 out of the last 3 years or 2 out of the last 5 years, whatever it is. I have some interest, but the ownership's probably a little higher than I want, so I'm going to be a little bit below the field. But I'm still playing in some of my higher buy-in stuff. I want to get more John Rahm, and I want to get more Thomas. I feel like the room is there. I'm just going to have to find different guys to pivot on the low end, which I'm definitely doing with Higgs, a combination of Higgs, Neesmith, Colley, Redmond, who may be higher owned, Von Taylor, and then my other low owned guys, Phil and Patrick Rogers. Patrick Rogers is the guy I'm going to start getting into more tournaments.
Wow. So Phil, Rory, and
Bryce.
And Bryce tee off at 7:35 a.m. Eastern.
7:35 a.m. Eastern. Wow.
That is correct.
You gotta like the early. So far the mornings, the first 2 weeks since we come back, have been incredible.
Here, let's check it out. Hold on. Here, you can unshare your screen.
Okay. Hold on. You know what I was gonna do before I unshare my screen?
Go ahead. I know. Then you can pull it up. I was gonna pull up the pairings. Everybody can see it.
Because I'm going pretty heavy this week.
Let's do it. Let's see it.
So I've got 2 in the 888. I'm maxed out the million.
Okay.
I've got 2 in the 888. I've got 1 in the 200, whatever, single entry. And then they have the 153 max. Then I've got 10 in the Stinger.
That's the one that I'm in. That's the one I was talking about. Okay.
Which will probably end up going 1-2 now that we pointed it out.
That's right.
And then there's, a couple single entries in there, the hundreds, the 375s, a bunch of stuff like that. And then I've got, probably a couple hundred $5 and $3 tournaments in there as well. But, it's going to be a pretty big day. And I'm excited for it, man. I still feel like something to do. And honestly, I feel like my research is done. It's more about in getting it all on my page. I've been whittling down my smaller buy-in lineups, and now I've got to do the big ones. And we're probably going to see a lot of this ownership more in the 40 to 50% range as I whittle down.
Well, my first guy the first guy that we even talked about that tees off, I guess if you have any on, he's the first guy out of the gate at 645. And then you have a little ownership in Higgs at 655, right? Then there's Scheffler at 705. I got some
early with Higgs. That's all I want. Just let me know early with Higgs.
Yeah. You know what? Did you hear anything about I heard a little bit of buzz about Matt Wolff. Do you have any of him?
I have a tiny bit, but very tiny bit. I feel like he's talented. Hasn't really put it together. I just feel like there's other guys I liked better in the low tier. I actually liked a lot of the low tier this week, which is a little different for me.
Let me see who the last guys there tee. Like who do I have to worry about? Oh, I don't. Oh, Fitzpatrick doesn't tee off till 150.
Ooh.
So that's good. That means I'm not going to be. I have to prepare myself for like what I'm winning and what I should be expecting when you pull up the lobbies, right?
Yeah.
So if a guy I have 45% of doesn't start till 2 p.m., I'm not worried too much about what I'm doing early, I guess.
Hopefully my lineups with all three in that pairing at 45 a.m. The Rory, Bryson, and Phil pairing. Hopefully I can get a giant lead off that one. But it's a long shot, I hope. You know what I mean? I'm not playing.
Oh, and this is the annoying one because the way they follow the live stream. So 7:35, they're going to be following those guys obviously every hole. And Patrick Reed, he starts at 7:55, so he's going to get lost. Like he's going to get lost in the coverage. I'm going to have to be sweating him on the.
I'll tell you what, he won't be lost if he's at the top of the leaderboard.
No, in the live stream they don't even give a shit who's in the leaderboard.
I guess that's fair. Yeah, the early ones. That's true.
Yeah, but and that's coming soon, man. I was actually kind of surprised that they don't do a better job of letting you follow whoever you want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the golf, but
no, I hear you.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes. So the other thing, I'm afraid of this, but I mean, people are going to go to sleep now. Now you know how you feel about betting these LOL and Korean baseball games. I mean, like if you go to sleep and you wake up and someone freaking had a fever at 6:30 in the morning, that you could wake up with freaking Rory McIlroy scratched. You know what I mean? Like it's very possible.
Yeah, I'm waking up. I'm not missing it. There's no you're responsible for my money and anybody else's that I touch.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. We have State Kings.
State Kings action. Yeah. So we'll see how that all goes. I'm just gonna make a few little swap-aroos here that are very basic pivots that I need to still whittle down, but just wanted to make sure.
So I have to ask. So you had 300 whatever total entries lives. Like how many of those did you do by hand?
Every one of these I've gone over by hand.
That's sick.
But what I haven't done is I did go. Okay, so I decided to leave like I think it was like 60 of them in like the $5 tournaments the way that they came out in the script.
Okay.
But that's out of like 500 lineups. That's a lot.
Dude, that's what you need though. You need like an intern. You need
But I feel like for golf we've had enough time where I should be able to get it ready. I mean, like I've still got another 5 hours to go, going strong. We're gonna do this, man. I have a good feeling about this week. I'm still whittling. Like, look, this is not my final end result ownership. This is a
right.
peak that I'm doing right now, and it's all going to change because I'm not done. Anytime you see a 2 up there, that means I'm not done yet. That's the way I'm doing it this week. I'm not always going to do it that way. It's not the way I always do things. Sometimes I'll leave the same thing in 15 tournaments. That's just not what I'm doing this week. I think there's a huge amount of variance. I want to embrace it. And it's not just COVID variance. It's just you have all the best players playing at courses they don't usually play that are playing incredibly easy, partially due to time of year, weather conditions. and they're just loaded fields. So everybody's awesome.
So just so everybody knows, I think what to expect from me or us this weekend. So what I plan on being available for is to do a review after tomorrow to see how we're how we're doing, and at some point maybe tomorrow, like Bobby, if you have time, maybe we'll do an MMA thing or something like that. Because Friday I'm not going to be able to be available. It's my thank God, I can't believe they're actually having it. But my son's having his graduation on Friday.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm not going to be, be able to do a sweat or a video, probably much of anything. And then maybe I'll find time Saturday, maybe to even do a NASCAR or something like that. But we definitely will hopefully have a sweat after Saturday. Maybe we'll do a quick video Saturday night or something like that. And then hopefully have a live thing to do Sunday. Yeah,
I hope that I'm not able to make it Sunday because I know I'm not going to be able to make anything Sunday because I actually have to pick up my daughter. She's it's a long story, but she's going to be coming into the real world for the first time in months. I've been quarantining up there with her and then going back and forth. It's been a complicated thing. She has to do some doctor stuff, so I'm going to pick her up on Sunday afternoon.
Okay.
But let's have a sweat, and it'll be just as enjoyable anyway. And you know what? If I can find a place to plug in my computer with her, I'll just go ahead and jump on and do it too, because that would be really fun to have a sweat. I just also really quickly before we got out of here, just wanted to show. Look, I still have some editing to do on my FanDuel lineups, but this is my early look. I'm only playing 555. I'm playing like 8 of them.
Well, let me ask you this, because I didn't do FanDuel this week. What is, if you knew offhand, what is the main difference that you can recall between your ownership on FanDuel as opposed to DraftKings?
It's so basically the biggest thing is I feel like it's really, really easy to do whatever you want to do on FanDuel. I feel like it's pretty easy on DraftKings too. I decided to go with the DraftKings model and sort of play a lineup that I would have played on DraftKings initially, but I may fiddle with it. I know I definitely will. But the big thing is it's pretty easy to get everybody you want to, and there's some missed prices out there. Some of them are on my lineups, some of them are not, but they certainly will be by the end. And, you have guys like I'm taking shot. I'm still taking shots on these really, really, really cheap guys. I just think there's enough of them that give a chance to where if they come in top 20 this week, it's not going to be like it was last week, where the guy who won, by the way, not only put up like the highest score ever, he put up the absolute net score. The guy who won the $1 million.
Is that true?
Yeah, he put up the absolute best possible score.
Well,
that's a tough thing to beat.
That'll do it.
That'll do it. I mean, I believe I heard it was the first or second time. I'm not 100% sure on that. Maybe somebody can verify in golf, but it is a hard thing to get the absolute perfect thing. Anyway, Sheets, we got to get out of here.
Yeah, I'm gonna run. And hey, Bobby, make sure that you tweet this. I have to remember to do it because I have to run right now.
Absolutely. All right, take it easy, Sheets.
And let's get him.
All right, for Sheets, I'm BobbyFi saying good luck. We'll see you at the top of the leaderboards.